Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Have you ever had that brilliant spark of an idea for a business? Maybe even taken the leap and started it.
Yeah, that initial excitement.
Exactly. Only to discover yourself, well, quickly drowning in the relentless day-to-day grind, feeling less free, maybe less in control than you ever were working for someone else.
That's a common story.
Or perhaps you've looked at those really successful enterprises, the ones that seem to defy gravity, and wondered, what is the fundamental difference? What sets them apart from the vast majority that just, fizzle out?
Right. What's the secret sauce?
Well, today, we're going to unpack some truly profound insights. Insights that don't just tweak your business strategy, but actually challenge the very way you think about entrepreneurship, about starting, and about growing any kind of venture.
Yeah, it goes pretty deep.
We're diving deep into the transformative world of Michael E. Gerber. We'll be focusing on the core concepts from his hugely influential work, The E-Myth Enterprise, but also pulling in powerful excerpts from his lectures, interviews, and other writings.
Gerber's really something else. He's more than just a business consultant, wouldn't you say? He's a real thought leader.
Definitely. He's reshaped how countless individuals approach their ventures, often with advice that feels surprisingly simple, almost counterintuitive sometimes, but utterly revolutionary.
It really shifts your perspective.
Our sources today are pretty rich. We've got transcript excerpts from a key 2016 keynote by Gerber himself, a really illuminating article called 3 Groundbreaking Concepts from the E-Myth Revisited, plus direct excerpts from the E-Myth Enterprise, and even a candid interview where Gerber reflects on his own journey.
Including some of his own failures, which is fascinating. Those often led to his biggest breakthroughs.
Absolutely. So our mission for you today is to pull out the most potent nuggets of wisdom from all this. We want to help you understand not just why so many businesses falter.
Which is a big question in itself.
Right. But what it truly takes to build one that doesn't just survive, but thrives with remarkable consistency and, importantly, purpose.
Yeah, that purpose piece is key in Gerber's work.
We want you to cultivate what you might call an E-Myth entrepreneur mindset. It's one that can radically transform your own approach to work, to life, really to any creative endeavor.
It's quite holistic.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll walk away with what Gerber himself describes as a template for greatness, a framework that honestly transcends industries, individual personalities, even time itself.
Because it's built on some really fundamental human truths, I think. What's so compelling about his philosophy is that it goes beyond just, business mechanics.
Right. It's not just about tweaking your marketing plan or optimizing operations.
No, exactly. Those things are important, of course. But Gerber pushes for a fundamental shift in perspective. He challenges these deeply ingrained assumptions many of us hold about what it even means to be an entrepreneur.
He forces you to rethink everything from the ground up.
Totally. It's not about incremental adjustments or patching up existing problems. This is really about a paradigm shift, a whole different way of seeing the world of work and creation.
Okay, so let's kick things off. Let's unpack this core idea that underpins so much of Gerber's work, the E-myth, the entrepreneurial myth.
Right, the big one.
When we think about starting a business, our minds often jump to these, larger-than-life figures, don't they? We picture visionaries like Bill Gates with Microsoft or Richard Branson with Virgin.
Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos.
Exactly. Even historical figures like Ray Kroc, who famously started McDonald's when he was 52, or Mary Kay Ash, building her cosmetics empire from scratch.
These are the icons.
We tell ourselves these are the dreamers, the titans of industry, the innovators who saw some grand vision and just through sheer force of will made it happen. That's the narrative, right? The inspiring story we're often fed.
It is. But here's where Gerber and the sources we looked at reveal a profoundly different reality, and frankly, a much more common one.
Okay.
The vast majority of businesses, Gerber argues, are actually started not by these visionary entrepreneurs in that sense, but by what he calls technicians.
Technicians. Interesting term. What does he mean by that?
These are individuals who are incredibly skilled at a particular technical craft. They're the master plumbers who can fix any leak, the chiropractors with that magic touch, the chefs whose dishes are just incredible.
So people who are really good at doing something specific.
Exactly. They are excellent, often brilliant at their specific technical work, and their motivation for starting a business is often very personal, very emotional. Usually it's about escaping a boss, right?
Yeah, wanting to be your own boss.
Right, to be truly free to do what they love exactly the way they want to do it without anyone interfering.
Like that plumber who's sick of being told how to fix a faucet. or the chef wanting total creative control.
Precisely. They excel at the doing, the craft. But
Yeah.
here's the crucial part. They make what Gerber calls a fatal assumption.
Okay, a fatal assumption. That sounds ominous.
It is because he believes it's why so many businesses fail. The assumption is that their technical expertise is enough to run a successful business doing that technical work.
I think I see where this is going.
And this leads us directly to what Gerber calls the entrepreneurial seizure.
The seizure. Okay.
It's that sudden, often emotional, almost irresistible urge to just go into business for yourself. It's powerful, right? Usually born out of frustration with a job or a boss or just wanting autonomy.
Yeah, that I can do this better myself moment.
Exactly. But as you said, it's often accompanied by this fatal assumption. So for anyone listening who's thinking of starting a business or maybe is already in the thick of it, what is this assumption and why is it so deadly?
Let's break that down.
A crucial point Gerber makes is that the fatal assumption is this, and it's worth quoting. If I understand how to do the technical work of my business, I understand a business that does that technical work.
Say that again?
If I understand how to do the technical work, I understand a business that does that technical work. He argues this is the core problem that dooms an alarming number of ventures.
So the brilliant chef thinks, I make amazing food, so my restaurant will be amazing.
Exactly. But they quickly find themselves completely unprepared for the reality that running a business doing technical work is vastly different from just doing the technical work itself. They might be a genius in the kitchen, but they have, and I'm quoting Gerber again here, no idea how to do so much of what the business needs.
Like what?
Like, the skills of leadership, management, marketing, sales, finance, customer fulfillment, all of it.
All the stuff around the cooking, or the plumbing, or the adjusting.
Precisely. They're so laser-focused on the technical task, the craft, that they entirely miss the complex ecosystem required to sustain a business around that craft. It's not just a knowledge gap. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what a business actually is.
Which is, what in Gerber's view?
A system, a predictable, functioning system, not just a collection of tasks performed by a skilled individual.
And this misunderstanding, this fatal assumption, it has immediate and incredibly severe consequences, doesn't it? Because that technician owner, despite all their initial excitement and skill, very quickly gets trapped.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost ironic, isn't it, how quickly that dream of freedom can turn into a new kind of servitude.
So how does that play out?
Well, the technician owner finds themselves working in the business almost exclusively rather than on it. That's a key distinction for Gerber.
In it, not on it.
They're bogged down in the day-to-day operations, usually doing all the technical work themselves because, hey, they're the expert, right? Plus, they're trying to figure out all the other essential business functions, marketing, sales, accounting, maybe managing a couple of staff completely on the fly with no real experience or system.
Sounds exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. They quickly become overwhelmed. And here's the kicker. They often find themselves with less time, less money, and less freedom than they had before.
Wow, so the exact opposite of what they wanted.
Exactly. It's a cruel twist. In trying to escape a boss, they've essentially created a new, far more demanding and often less forgiving boss for themselves, the business itself. A business that's totally reliant on their individual efforts to survive day to day.
I bet many listeners recognize that feeling. That initial burst of energy for a new venture, only to feel utterly bogged down by its relentless demands, the late nights, the constant stress.
Yeah, the feeling that you're not just creating another job for yourself, but often a worse, all-consuming one, the passion project that slowly becomes a prison.
So if this is how most businesses are born out of this entrepreneurial seizure and fatal assumption, and if the sources note that staggering 80% failure rate in the first 5 years.
That is a terrifying statistic.
It really is. What's the solution then? Gerber suggests something pretty radical, doesn't he? This two-co strategy. Old co and new co. It almost sounds like admitting defeat with your current setup.
It does sound harsh, but Gerber's stance here is pretty uncompromising and I think deeply insightful. He basically says, old co is a waste of time. Don't try to fix it.
Don't even try to fix the business you have.
If it's suffering deeply from these ingrained technician mindset issues where you're doing all the work, feeling trapped, lacking systematic growth, he argues it's essentially a trap. It's too embedded with the old patterns, the reactive thinking, the personal habits that got it into that state.
So throwing good money after bad, maybe.
Kind of. He argues the only way to truly transform is to focus entirely on NewCo, the company you're about to create. not the one you're desperately trying to salvage or just tweak around the edges.
Okay, so it's not about giving up on the dream, but about how you approach building it.
Exactly. It's about a fundamental shift in perspective, moving from that reactive, technician-driven approach to a proactive, design-oriented mindset. You're essentially building from a clean slate, but using the hard-won lessons from old code to inform the design of new code, ensuring it's structured for systematic success right from day one.
Designing it to work without you having to do everything.
Precisely. And what's really compelling is that Gerber isn't just, theorizing here. The sources show he lived this transformation himself. He personally experienced the pain of an old co before fully embracing this new co philosophy.
Right. Tell us about that. That was with his own e-myth company.
Yeah, he recounted how he was famously fired from his own company by his ex-wife, who owned 51% to his 49%. He called it his greatest failure, a direct consequence, he admitted, of not applying his own principles, of not paying enough attention to his own greatest success.
Wow. That must have been tough.
Incredibly. But instead of trying to patch up that old co, which was apparently riddled with personal and operational issues, he fully embraced the new co strategy. At 80 years old, believe it or not, with his fourth wife, Liz Delia, he started a completely new enterprise, Michael E. Gerber Companies.
At 80? That's amazing.
Isn't it? And their dream, nothing small. It was to transform the state of small business worldwide, reinventing the e-myth for a new era.
So his own story is a powerful example of that start anew mentality.
Absolutely. It demonstrates that real transformation often isn't about incremental tweaks to something fundamentally flawed. It's about consciously designing what you want to create from the ground up, free from the ingrained limitations and assumptions of the past.
Designing a reproducible enterprise, one that works systematically.
Exactly, regardless of the specific individual running it day to day. That's the goal.
Okay, so this shift to NewCo isn't just wishful thinking. It requires a meticulous, systematic approach. Gerber insists that before you even think about the what of the products or services, you must start with a profound why.
Yes, the why is paramount.
He asks, what's your dream? But here's where it gets really interesting, because we're so often told, follow your personal dreams, follow your passion. Gerber flips that on its head, doesn't he?
He really does. And this is a critical distinction. It raises the question, what kind of dream are we talking about? Gerber explicitly states, if it's a personal dream, it's off track. An impersonal dream, it's on track.
Off track if it's personal. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does at first, but he clarifies. So effectively, it's not about you. It's about them. It's never about you. It's about them. It's never about you wanting. It's about them wishing for.
Okay, so the dream isn't about my desire to be rich or famous or my own boss.
No. The dream, in the context of what he calls an e-myth enterprise, is the great result you intend to produce for the customer, for the market, for the world. It's about creating inherent value, something that truly serves others, not just fulfills the owner's personal needs or ego.
That's a radical reorientation.
It is. This grand, impersonal dream is the bedrock. And then it's followed by a clear vision, what that result looks like in tangible, measurable terms, like a vivid picture of the future state.
Okay, dream, then vision.
Then a profound purpose why it matters deeply. Beyond just function or profit, what fundamental human need does it address? And finally, a practical mission, how you'll actually achieve it. The daily, weekly, monthly actions and processes.
So dream, vision, purpose, mission, DVPM.
Exactly. DVPM. And this precise sequence, Gerber insists, is absolutely non-negotiable for building what he calls the infrastructure that's absolutely critical for every great growing company.
And he points to examples.
Yeah, think about those icons again. Ray Kroc's dream for McDonald's wasn't just selling burgers. It was about a consistent, predictable, family-friendly experience everywhere. Steve Jobs' vision for Apple wasn't just computers. It was about democratizing technology and empowering creativity. Mary Kay Ash's purpose was deeply tied to empowering women economically and personally.
Their enterprises became expressions of that bigger impersonal aspiration.
Exactly. They were giving something to the world, not just taking from it or satisfying a personal whim.
Okay, so once you have that profound DVPM, that guiding why and the roadmap, you need the operational skills to actually execute it.
Right. The how.
Gerber outlines 5 crucial, almost universal skills. He says these are needed right from the outset to give your business, I love this phrase, size, scale, magnitude, ecstatic quality, the power needed to enter the race.
It's quite poetic, isn't it?
It is. These aren't just standard managerial skills, are they? They feel more like foundational principles for how the whole enterprise should breathe and operate. like the DNA of a successful system.
That's a great way to put it. They're interwoven and absolutely essential. Let's walk through them.
They do.
First, there's concentration. This is the energy and, crucially, the unwavering attention needed for right action. It's the ability to direct your vital force, your focus, towards the most impactful tasks, filtering out all the noise and distractions.
So focused power.
Exactly. Without it, energy just dissipates into chaos, and even the best intentions don't yield results. Relentless pursuit of the specific actions that actually move the needle.
Okay, concentration. What's next?
Second, discrimination. This is about intention and standards. It's the ability to discern what specific action needs to be taken and, critically, to ensure it's done with the highest possible quality.
So, making smart choices and insisting on excellence.
Yes. It's about making discerning choices, setting rigorous standards for absolutely everything: product quality, customer service, hiring, communication, everything. It's about knowing and pursuing the best way, not just in terms of speed, but in terms of effectiveness and overall excellence.
Makes sense.
Third is organization. This is the skill of transforming chaos into elegant, functional order. And here, Gerber emphasizes a point that often trips up business owners. He says, people cannot be organized. Only the work people do can be organized.
Now, that's interesting. You organize the work, not the people.
Precisely. He argues that trying to organize people directly just leads to chaos, bureaucracy, boredom, disease. But by meticulously organizing time, space, and the work processes, you produce ease and efficiency for everyone involved.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure, think about the Starbucks example often cited in the sources. Even when there's a huge line, it often moves smoothly, right? That's because someone might be taking orders down the line with a tablet, maybe using walkie-talkies to communicate orders ahead. They're not organizing the customers or the baristas per se.
They're organizing the flow of work.
Exactly. They're organizing the workflow and managing time efficiently. This allows the right action making and serving coffee to happen without wasted effort, leading to a consistent customer experience. And crucially, it allows a greater number of people, even those without star barista skills, to perform the work effectively just by following the system.
That allows for scalability and consistency. Okay, number 4.
Fourth is innovation. This is sometimes called the best way skill. It's a relentless, continuous pursuit of perfection. While organization is about making existing processes efficient, innovation is about effectiveness, constantly finding ways to make things faster, cheaper, smoother, softer, better.
Always improving the process itself.
Yes. Never being satisfied with good enough. Always asking, is there a better way to deliver this value?
And the 5th skill.
Fifth, and maybe overarching, is communication. Gerber calls this the skill through which all results are produced in the world. It's the constant process of, as he puts it, touching and being touched, moving and being moved upon.
Sounds quite profound.
It is. It ensures that ideas, intentions, instructions, feedback, everything are transmitted effectively and clearly across the entire enterprise. It connects all the parts: leadership, employees, customers, suppliers. Is like the circulatory system of the business.
Without it, everything just grinds to a halt.
Pretty much. These 5 skills: concentration, discrimination, organization, innovation, communication, they work together.
These really aren't just vague concepts you try to bolt on later, are they? They seem like actionable frameworks for how a truly successful business has to operate from its absolute core.
That's exactly right.
And it highlights that building a great company isn't necessarily about finding a few naturally great people and just hoping for the best.
No, that's the people-dependent trap.
Right. It's about designing great, reproducible systems that enable anyone, or at least ordinary people, to produce consistently great results, turning ordinary individuals into an extraordinary collective through the power of the system.
That's the essence of it. And that's a huge, huge shift from the technician mindset we started with.
Okay, so we've established the foundational why with the DVTM and the essential how with those 5 skills. Now, let's shift gears to something Gerber says we often overlook, something he argues is profoundly impactful: the visual impression.
Ah, yes, the visual ideal.
Our sources emphasize that a business is first and foremost a visual thing, and that managing these visual impressions is actually critical to its success. He even suggests it's more critical than managing people. That really struck me.
It's a bold claim, isn't it?
It is, because we spend so much time thinking about HR strategies, leadership styles, team building, but maybe not enough on what the business literally looks like, how it presents itself visually to the world.
It's a powerful point. And what's fascinating here is Gerber's argument about how deeply and immediately we are affected by visual images. He says the conception, creation, and meticulous maintenance of a strong visual impression communicates more instantly and often more lastingly than pretty much anything else you say or do.
So first impressions really count, visually speaking.
Hugely. He breaks this down into what he calls a visual matrix. 6 tangible components that he believes must be consciously designed and managed with incredible precision.
Okay, let's hear them. The visual matrix.
First, color. It's often the very first thing people perceive, right? And it instantly communicates purpose. Is this place playful, serious, formal, innovative, comforting? Think about the color palette of a bank versus a children's toy store. Huge difference in the message sent.
Instantly. Okay, color.
Second, form. This is the shape and structure of everything. The logo, the branding, the physical layout, the architecture, even the design of the products or the uniforms.
Overall shape of things. Got it.
Third, scale. The size and proportion of elements. This influences how grand or intimate, imposing or welcoming a space or a product feels. Think of a vast, minimalist Apple store versus a cozy, cluttered, independent bookstore. Very different scale, very different feeling.
Right. Scale matters.
Fourth, order. This is huge. The arrangement, the tidiness, the sense of organization, it can immediately convey professionalism, efficiency, care. Or, conversely, chaos, neglect, and lack of attention. A cluttered desk versus a clear one sends a message.
Definitely. Order.
Fifth, detail. These are the small, often overlooked elements that complete the picture. They signal care, thoughtfulness, attention to quality. It could be a perfectly polished doorknob, crisp signage, the font on a menu, the stitching on a uniform, the little things that add up.
The details make the design, as they say.
Exactly. And six, information. This is about what all these visual elements, color, form, scale, order, detail, collectively convey about the business's identity, its values, its promises, its overall quality. It's the nonverbal story the business tells about itself instantly.
Wow. Okay, so color, form, scale, order, detail, and information. That's the visual matrix. And the examples Gerber uses really bring this home, don't they? Both the good and the bad.
They really do. They make it incredibly vivid. He paints this loving, almost poetic description of a guy named John Anderson and his perfect 1947 Ford Coupe. He details how every single part glistened, how they merged into this stunning whole, creating what he called a shining gift that just evoked love and possibility.
So the car wasn't just transportation, it was a visual statement.
Absolutely. A meticulously curated and maintained experience. A visual statement of dedication and excellence. Similarly, he points out how Disneyland spends, I think the figure was 5,000 gallons of paint each year, and maintains 500,000 costume pieces just to ensure everything looks better than new. It's relentless visual upkeep.
That's commitment.
And McDonald's, under Ray Kroc's original vision, apparently spent more than $7 million a day on visual preparation alone, spotless floors, pristine parking lots, consistent signage. Kroc understood that cleanliness and visual consistency were absolutely paramount to their brand promise.
You see it with Starbucks, Apple stores, FedEx offices too.
Yes, all those brands exemplify this meticulous attention to their visual matrix. It shows the visual isn't just superficial fluff, it's fundamental to the customer experience and the brand identity itself.
But the contrast he provides is even more striking, isn't it? Yeah. The negative example really drives the point home.
Oh, powerfully. He describes Weisberg's Army-Navy surplus store, which was inherited by 2 sons, Marty and Saul. Gerber paints this bleak picture of blatant lack of attention, of care, of imagination, of interest.
What'd it look like?
Faded neon sign, a low brown tin ceiling, dark fluorescent lights, soiled linoleum floors, even a truly filthy bathroom with just a single naked light bulb. Just ugliness.
Yikes.
And Gerber states that this pervasive ugliness wasn't just neglect, it was a mute but eloquent testament to the father's and then later Saul's feeling of imprisonment by the business, their profound lack of love for it.
So the visual reflected the internal state of the owner.
Exactly. This stark contrast highlights that the visual ideal isn't just about aesthetics or marketing spin. It's a deep, immediate reflection of the care, the purpose, and even the love or lack thereof invested in the enterprise. It fundamentally shapes how people interact with and perceive your business, often before they've even spoken to anyone or tried your product.
You just feel the difference intuitively.
Yes, you really do.
That makes perfect sense. It's like when you walk into certain places, offices or restaurants, and before anyone even greets you, you get this immediate, almost visceral sense of how they operate. Okay, so moving beyond just what a business looks like, Gerber argues a truly great business also needs meaning. It has to rise above the one-dimensional symbols and genuinely touch hearts, strike the imagination.
Yes, the emotional ideal.
He even makes a rather provocative comparison, doesn't he? Equating a great business to war in its ability to raise serious questions and build inner strength. And he brings in Robert S. DeRopp's idea of games worth playing.
He does. It's about fostering deep emotional engagement, not just churning out transactions.
So what's the core idea here? What makes a business emotionally resonant?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Gerber suggests that people, fundamentally, aren't just looking for wealth or comfort. They need, as DeRopp put it, games worth playing. Something to engage with intensely. Something that provides a compelling challenge and a sense of purpose that goes beyond mere survival or material gain.
Something more meaningful.
Exactly. A business that truly soars, especially when times are tough, must mean more than just money or products. It has to feel like it gives us more life. It needs to offer something almost heroic, something that touches a deeper part of us, inspiring us to achieve something extraordinary together. This emotional ideal is about creating a potent sense of belonging, shared purpose, and maybe even exhilaration.
And the story of Mary Brown and her Holistic Health Institute illustrates this beautifully, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a fantastic example. Here's Mary Brown with literally no capital and no prior business experience, yet she creates this profoundly successful vocational school. Why? Because the people involved, her employees, her customers, the students, her suppliers, even her lenders, they loved her and the school she had created.
They weren't just involved, they were emotionally invested.
Deeply. She wasn't just running a school, she was building a community, a crucible for personal and professional transformation. And through her journey, she learned, or perhaps intuitively understood, 7 crucial rules for building an emotionally vital business. These rules are really insightful, I think.
Let's hear them. What did Mary Brown figure out?
Okay, first, people need order. They crave structure, logic, fairness, clear standards. They want to know the rules of the game and feel it's played fairly.
Predictability and fairness. Got it.
Second, people need to feel heard. Their contribution has to genuinely matter. There need to be open, transparent channels for expression, for feedback, even for complaints, where they feel someone is actually listening.
Their voice matters.
Third, people need to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. The business needs important aims, maybe even, as Gerber puts it, to tilt at windmills. A grand, impersonal dream they can rally around, something that transcends their own self-interest.
That DVPM idea again, but felt emotionally.
Exactly. Fourth, people need a purpose and a plan. They need to feel they're going somewhere specific in a specific amount of time. Clarity on the journey and the destination gives meaning to the effort.
Sense of direction.
Fifth, people need moral weight. The business must operate with a conscience, genuinely concerned with what is right for its people, its customers, the community, the world. Integrity has to be at the core.
Doing the right thing matters.
Sixth, people need to feel personally important. They need to feel they add something vital and unique, that the enterprise wouldn't be quite the same or as good without their individual contribution. Their uniqueness is valued.
Feeling significant.
And seventh, perhaps the most profound, people need to feel loved. Now, maybe cared for is a better term in a business context, but the essence is there. People need to feel that others in the enterprise genuinely care for them as human beings, especially when challenges arise. It's about a deep sense of belonging and mutual respect.
Order, being heard, connection, purpose, morality, importance, and love or care. That's quite a list.
It really covers the emotional landscape of work, doesn't it? And there's this fantastic quote from one of Mary Brown's students that just perfectly encapsulates this complex emotional bond.
What did they say?
They wrote, "She's rough, she's tough, but she knows her stuff, and she can charm the socks off a baby." I love you, Mary C. Brown.
That's brilliant. Rough and tough, but loved.
Exactly. It embodies that intense, almost love-hate relationship you often find in truly great enterprises, where high expectations and rigorous standards coexist with deep loyalty and affection, precisely because the underlying purpose is so compelling and the genuine care is so evident.
That Mary Brown quote really does capture that unique blend of fierce dedication and profound care. And this love-hate dynamic, this intensity, it's something Gerber talks about from his own experience too, right? Highlighting that it's not always about soft, gentle leadership.
Absolutely. He recounts this vivid anecdote from his own childhood about his saxophone teacher, a man named Merle.
Merle, the saxophone teacher. Okay.
Gerber describes Merle as a tyrant, a tormentor who wouldn't allow me to get away with anything. Merle would make young Michael play musical phrases over and over and over again until it fairly flew from my fingers on its own.
Sounds tough.
It was. Gerber explicitly calls it a profound love-hate relationship. Merle was difficult, incredibly demanding, but he pushed Gerber relentlessly towards mastery, forcing him beyond his own perceived limits.
So the toughness served a higher purpose, excellence.
Precisely. And Gerber says this mirrors the experience in many truly effective E-Myth enterprises. It's often a love-hate relationship with the leader or the company itself. He points to figures like Walt Disney, calling him a monster no one was tougher, or Ray Kroc or Steve Jobs. People who worked closely with them often said they loved the man and hated him. They loved the company and hated it.
That intensity.
That intensity, he argues, isn't about being cruel for cruelty's sake. It drives incredible results and deep, passionate engagement because it stems from an unwavering commitment to extraordinary standards, demanding nothing less than perfection and continuous improvement from everyone involved, pushing them towards their own personal and professional greatness within the context of the business's larger purpose.
It's tough love, maybe. Forged in the heat of pursuing an ideal.
That's a good way to put it. Forged in pursuit of an ideal.
Okay, we've covered what a business looks like, the visual ideal, and how it feels, the emotional ideal. Now, let's move to perhaps the most practical aspect.
Right.
How does it actually work? The functional ideal.
Right, the mechanics of delivery.
Gerber argues here that a people-oriented company strategy is almost always different than a process-oriented company strategy. This feels like a really fundamental choice every business owner has to make, doesn't it? A fork in the road that defines the whole nature of the enterprise.
It is a critical distinction, and it raises that important question. Is your business fundamentally built on finding and keeping exceptional people, or is it built on designing and implementing exceptional processes?
People versus process. What's the difference in approach?
Well, a people-oriented company, or maybe people-dependent is a better term, typically operates by trying to find a self-motivated star performer who already knows how to do the job really well. They hire these stars, give them the keys, and then basically leave them to it, hoping their individual brilliance will carry the day. Success relies heavily on the inherent skill, motivation, and reliability of a few key individuals.
Okay, betting on the jockey, so to speak.
Pretty much. Now, a process-oriented company, which is what Gerber advocates for, approaches things very differently. It focuses on designing the best way to do every critical task, creating standardized, predictable, and repeatable processes.
So the system is the star.
Exactly. The system ensures consistency and high quality for everyone involved, employees, customers, suppliers, lenders, regardless of who is performing the specific task at any given moment. The process, not the individual's unique talent, guarantees the result. And Gerber argues this is actually liberating.
Liberating? How so? It sounds potentially restrictive.
Because it frees people from having to constantly reinvent the wheel or rely on guesswork. It enables ordinary people to produce extraordinary, consistent results simply by following a proven, well-designed system. They don't have to be stars in the traditional sense. The system empowers them. And this is what allows for true scalability and sustained quality over time.
Okay, that makes sense. The system provides the structure for success.
Yes, and the core of this functional ideal, the driving force behind designing these processes, is to systematically eliminate the primary frustration experienced by any one of the four primary influencers of a business.
The four influencers being customers, employees, suppliers, and lenders.
Correct. And this primary frustration isn't just some minor annoyance. Gerber defines it as the negative experience most commonly complained about in a particular industry. It's the deep pain point, the thing that makes people dread interacting with businesses in that sector, or what makes them choose one provider over another, or sometimes just choose to suffer because there's no good alternative.
So you identify the biggest source of pain in your industry.
Yes. And then you design the best way process specifically to eliminate that pain. You discover this best way by rigorously asking critical questions like, what one thing would our customers, employees, suppliers, and lenders most like us to do for them that we and our competitors currently can't do? And then, crucially, what would be the best way to actually do it?
It's not just about incremental improvement then. It's about identifying the biggest frustration and designing a radical, systematic solution.
Exactly. A system designed to make that frustration impossible, or at least highly unlikely.
This sounds incredibly practical. It moves beyond abstract ideals to very concrete actions. Can you give us some more tangible examples? What are some typical primary frustrations, and how would a process-driven approach tackle them?
Sure. Let's take building contractors. A huge, almost universal frustration for homeowners is the job wasn't completed when they said it would be, and it went way over budget.
Right. Oh, yeah. Classic complaint.
So a process-oriented contractor aiming to eliminate that frustration wouldn't just hope to be on time and budget. They would design a meticulous system, maybe call the company on time, on budget builders, and their guarantee would be something like, we are always on time, on price, and deliver a spotless performance, or we pay for it. Guaranteed.
That's a bold promise. How could they deliver that?
Through process. It means every single step, from the initial consultation and quoting through scheduling, materials ordering, managing subcontractors, quality control, client communication, to the final walkthrough, is meticulously mapped out. Contingency plans are built in. Communication is systematized and transparent. The system ensures the promise is kept, not just the good intentions of the contractor.
Okay, I see. The process makes the promise possible. Another example.
Auto repair. A common frustration is, I felt totally out of control. I didn't understand what they were doing, the bill was confusing, and I felt like maybe I was being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that lack of transparency is a big one.
So the functional ideal here would involve creating clear, standardized diagnostic procedures, maybe using tablets with visuals to explain the needed repairs to the customer. Absolutely transparent, itemized pricing presented up front, regular updates throughout the repair process. It's all systematized so every customer has a predictable, understandable, and reassuring experience, eliminating that feeling of being out of control.
Building trust through process. One more.
Doctor's offices, probably the most widespread frustration. I waited forever to see the doctor.
Definitely felt that one.
The functional ideal here wouldn't just be telling staff to work faster. It would involve optimizing the entire workflow through precise processes, smart scheduling algorithms, efficient patient intake procedures, maybe using technology to streamline communication between staff and doctors, redesigning the physical layout for better flow, all aimed at significantly reducing waiting times and making the visit predictable and respectful of the patient's time.
In every case, the focus shifts from relying on a star employee to somehow fix the problem to designing a robust system that prevents the problem from happening for anyone interacting with the business.
That's the core idea, system-dependent, not people-dependent.
And this brings us to the story of Marino Santos and his company, 3-Day Kitchens. Our sources present this as a really compelling, almost perfect illustration of this shift from a technician-dependent model to a truly process-driven enterprise. Sounds like quite a journey.
It really is a remarkable story. Marino Santos was, by all accounts, a master framer, a true technician with incredible physical skill. And his crew, whom he called Los Apasionados Sin Igual, the passionate ones without equal, were also exceptional, highly skilled technicians. They were the stars.
So a classic people-dependent operation.
Totally. But then disaster struck. Marino suffered a severe accident and was sidelined, unable to do the physical work. And suddenly, the business ground to a halt. He was forced to confront the fundamental vulnerability of a business built solely on the physical skills and individual brilliance of a few key people, especially himself. The company simply couldn't function without them doing the core work.
A painful realization, I imagine.
Extremely. They realized they had to build a different kind of business, one that didn't rely entirely on their unique physical skills or their personal presence for every single aspect of the job. Their new dream, born out of this crisis, was to create a business that, as Gerber puts it, works for us. One that can make it easy for people who are not like us and who will never be like us to act like us.
Wow. To systematize their own brilliance, essentially.
Exactly. To take the technical mastery of their master framers and embed it deep into a repeatable, teachable system.
So how do they go about it?
Well, first, they meticulously researched different segments of the construction industry. They were looking for a niche that was relatively stable, could be compartmentalized into distinct steps, wasn't massively capital intensive, and crucially, could be made independent of relying on other unpredictable contractors. They wanted control over the entire process.
And they landed on kitchen remodeling.
Yes, and they named their new venture 3-Day Kitchens. But here's the crucial part. They didn't just hang out a shingle and start taking jobs.
What did they do?
They spent 2.5 years in dedicated work, research, and planning before launching properly. During that time, they installed hundreds of kitchens for practice.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Just for practice.
Yes, but they weren't just practicing their technical skills. They were meticulously documenting, analyzing, refining, and systematizing every single step of the kitchen remodeling process. They created a massive database of quantified experience. They pre-planned solutions for every conceivable variation, problem, or challenge they encountered. They designed incredibly precise construction strategies and workflows.
They were building this system.
They were building the machine. And then they rigorously trained completely inexperienced technicians, not star carpenters, using their system, turning them into highly effective installers simply by teaching them to follow the process exactly. And underpinning it all, they established a robust management system to ensure their process was used exactly as planned each and every time.
No deviations allowed.
The system was king. This is just a perfect textbook example of shifting from that technician-dependent model, where the individual's unique skill is paramount and fragile, to a truly process-driven enterprise, where the system itself ensures consistent, predictable, high-quality results time after time, regardless of who is performing the specific task.
It's about building reproducible excellence, a machine that works predictably, whether the original master is there or not.
That's the E-Myth enterprise in action.
That's a truly powerful transformation, from relying on personal skill to creating a scalable, reliable system. Okay, finally, let's talk about the last of the 4 categories of preference. The financial ideal. Money.
Ah, yes, money. Can't forget that.
We've all heard that well-intentioned platitude, right? Do the right things and the money will take care of itself. It's a comforting thought, kind of a build it and they will come philosophy for your finances.
It sounds nice, doesn't it?
It does. But our sources show Gerber challenges that directly and with quite a bit of force.
Yeah, what's striking here is his blunt assertion that just completely contradicts that common wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
He says quite emphatically, let me tell you this, the money never takes care of itself. Never.
Never.
Never, he follows up. You have to take care of money daily, not monthly, not annually, but daily. By the hour is best.
By the hour. That sounds intense.
It is intense. He sees money not just as a numerical outcome on a spreadsheet, but almost like food for the business and the people involved. Something we consume and convert into beliefs and feelings of power, security, self-esteem, fairness.
So money has an emotional component too.
Absolutely. And he insists that in a free market, money is the measure. Money speaks, don't mess with that truth. His point is that money management is a critical, hands-on, and constant activity. It's deeply tied to the subjective perceptions of everyone connected to the business employees, customers, suppliers, lenders.
And messing with those perceptions.
Messing with those perceptions by being careless, irresponsible, or non-transparent with money, he warns, will have severe, tangible consequences for the business's health, its reputation, and its relationships with all those stakeholders. It's not just about crunching numbers in the back office, it's about managing the very lifeblood and the perceived trustworthiness of the entire enterprise, constantly.
So hypervigilance on the financial front is essential.
According to Gerber, yes. However, and this is crucial, there's a vital counterbalance to this intense, almost hourly focus on financial management, something that prevents it from becoming purely materialistic or greedy.
Okay, what's the counterbalance?
He adds this critical qualifier. Because while money is everything, money isn't everything. Trust me. Your word, your integrity is everything.
So while you manage the money meticulously, it's not the only thing that matters.
Exactly. It points to that deeper moral foundation we talked about with the emotional ideal. Integrity must underpin even the relentless pursuit of financial success and stability. Money might be the immediate measure of success in the marketplace, the score on the board, but your word, your integrity, your character, that's the bedrock upon which lasting, meaningful success is actually built.
Without it, the financial gains are probably fleeting.
That seems to be his argument. Trust erodes, relationships fracture, and the enterprise ultimately loses its soul and its long-term staying power. It's a powerful reminder. Manage the money like your life depends on it, because in a business sense it does, but never, ever sacrifice your integrity in the process.
Money is everything, but integrity is everything more.
Something like that, yeah. It's a delicate but critical balance.
Okay, this deep dive, as we're seeing, really does go far beyond simple business tips and tricks. Gerber introduces these profound ideas, like the E-Myth perspective and the concept of the warrior merchant. He fundamentally challenges us to think deeply about what a business truly creates, and whether that creation genuinely holds inherent value, or if it's just, well, a means to an end, like making money.
Yeah, that warrior merchant concept is really interesting. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all about inherent value and the dignity of the work itself, not just the profit it generates.
And he uses that famous cheese balls example, right?
He does. He asks, could a true warrior merchant, his ideal, awakened, purpose-driven entrepreneur, make cheese balls? And his answer is a resounding no.
Why not? People like cheese balls.
His reasoning is provocative. He says making cheese balls has no inherent value and is of value only because of the money it creates, and because creating money by making cheese balls must ultimately degrade one's dignity, one's sense of personal human value.
Wow. That's quite a statement. He's saying the work itself has to have intrinsic worth.
That's the challenge he throws down. It pushes us to consider, does what our business sells or develops align with a deeper sense of worth and purpose? Does it genuinely contribute something meaningful to human experience, even in a small way? Or is it merely serving to generate revenue without any deeper positive impact?
It's not necessarily a judgment on snack foods themselves, maybe, but more a call to self-reflection for the creator, the entrepreneur.
I think that's a fair reading. It's asking, is the work you're putting out into the world something that adds intrinsic value, something you can be truly proud of beyond the balance sheet? Or is it just a commodity, ultimately degrading to the human spirit, both for the creator and maybe even the consumer?
It forces you to ask, what am I really creating here?
Exactly. And Marino Santos' story, the kitchen remodeler, serves as that powerful counterexample to the cheese balls dilemma. He took ordinary work kitchen remodeling, but did it in such an extraordinary way, through his meticulous system and commitment to excellence, that he elevated his craft far beyond mere transaction. He imbued his work with inherent value and dignity through the way it was done.
He wasn't just installing cabinets, he was delivering predictable peace of mind and quality through his system.
Precisely. He transcended the ordinary.
This brings us to perhaps the most provocative, maybe even unsettling, and deeply philosophical part of Gerber's discussion. He makes this startling claim that most people are, in his words, sound asleep, living on automatic, unconscious, hopelessly identified with what they do and with who they think they are.
Yeah, this is where it gets really existential.
And he asserts that if this is true, if most people are operating in this state of sleep, then the companies, let alone the lives of such people, are doomed before they even begin.
It's a heavy critique, isn't it? It goes way beyond business psychology.
It really does. What's the core of this critique? Why does he think we're all asleep?
Well, what's fascinating here is the depth of it. He believes most of us are hopelessly inseparable from the events of which their lives are made, meaning we're so caught up in the immediate circumstances, our reactions, our habits, our conditioning, that we confuse them for conscious, deliberate choices.
We think we're driving, but we're actually just passengers reending to the road.
That's a good analogy. We act out ingrained habits and social programming, reacting almost automatically to stimuli, yet we firmly believe we are truly free, making independent, objective decisions. The core problem, he argues, is that we think we're awake, that we think we already are objective, that we think we already are individuals, that we think we already are free.
It's this self-delusion, this state of sleep, this automatic identification with our roles, our routines, our reactions.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental barrier.
That's what he argues, yes. It's a fundamental barrier to true transformation and lasting greatness, not just in the businesses we create, but in our lives themselves. He sees it as a pervasive societal condition. He mentions reflecting on decades of interacting with thousands of diverse people, scientists, artists, mechanics, politicians.
And his conclusion.
Tragically, he finds them, all of them, every single last living one of them, without exception, are caught hopelessly and helplessly in the muck and mire of deep, lasting, impenetrable sleep. They are, in his view, hopelessly identified with what they do and with who they think they are, just playing out these pre-programmed roles without real awareness.
That's a powerful, almost unsettling observation. If Gerber is right, or even partially right, and so many of us are effectively asleep at the wheel, operating on autopilot, how do we wake up? What's the turning point? What is this critical instant of awakening he talks about that allows us to break free?
He describes this instant of awakening as a truly miraculous, almost paradoxical moment. It's when we first manage to see ourselves, just for an instant, from outside the circle, as he puts it.
Outside our own habitual patterns.
Yes, it's when we recognize how programmed we are, how we've been operating on autopilot, confusing our fleeting reactions, our emotions like passion or desire or even moral indignation for genuinely conscious thought and deliberate choice.
A moment of profound self-awareness.
Exactly. He describes it as generating an intense energy, of intense life, of intense vitality. This sudden clarity comes with the recognition of our own habitual mechanical patterns, and only at this instant, when for a fleeting moment we are wide awake, does true freedom emerge.
Why that?
Because in that moment of detachment, of objective self-observation, you realize that anything is possible. For that brief moment, you are outside the prison walls of your own conditioned mind, your own automatic reactions. This transformation, Gerber asserts, isn't just about improving a business strategy, it's about transforming one's entire being, becoming truly present, truly intentional in every single action.
It's the starting point for real creation, not just reaction.
That seems to be the core of it, the conscious creator versus the unconscious reactor.
That concept of awakening, of seeing ourselves from the outside, it feels incredibly resonant. I imagine many listeners might feel a pang of recognition there, wondering, how often do I operate on autopilot? Just going through the motions in daily life or work without real presence or intention.
It's a challenging thought.
It is. Gerber's profound work suggests that true innovation and lasting success in business, and maybe even more broadly in life, come not just from working harder or acquiring more technical skills, but from reaching this deeper level of consciousness, from truly being awake, intentional, and designing your life and your enterprise with genuine purpose and clarity from that awakened state.
How much taller order than just writing a business plan?
Indeed. Wow, what a truly deep dive this has been. We've journeyed today from that fundamental myth of entrepreneurship, the idea that just being good at the technical work is enough.
The technician's trap.
Right, all the way to the very nature of human consciousness and the possibility of awakening. We've seen how vital it is to think on your business, designing it meticulously as a system, not just getting lost working in it day after day.
That shift is critical.
We explored the foundational power of having that dream, vision, purpose, and mission, that DVPM framework guiding the enterprise beyond just personal desires or profit motives.
Setting the true north.
We delved into those 5 essential skills: concentration, discrimination, organization, innovation, and communication. Understanding how they provide the actual power and operational ease for a business to truly thrive, enabling reproducible excellence.
The engine room of the enterprise.
And we've uncovered those critical 4 categories of preference: the visual, emotional, functional, and financial ideals. Grasping that what your business looks like, how it makes people feel deep down, how consistently and effectively it actually works through its processes, and how meticulously its finances are cared for. These are all absolutely non-negotiable for building something great and lasting.
They all have to work together.
We've learned that money demands daily, even hourly, vigilant care, but that integrity is paramount. That people desperately need to feel heard, to have order, and to be connected to something bigger than themselves. And that the visual impression your business makes is often far more powerful and immediate than direct management efforts. It's truly a holistic, almost spiritual way of looking at building a business.
It really integrates everything, doesn't it? Which leads us to a final, perhaps provocative thought for you, the listener.
Go for it.
If, as Gerber compellingly suggests, true greatness in business ultimately stems from a profound sense of purpose that genuinely transcends mere profit, and if it arises from an awakened, objective state of being, what cheese balls might you still be unwillingly creating in your own life or your own business right now?
What are my cheese balls?
Yeah, and perhaps even more deeply, what might you begin to do differently? Or maybe what might you cease doing entirely if you truly lived as though, in the words of the warrior, today is a good day to die, aligning your every action, every creation with your deepest sense of purpose and unshakable integrity.
Wow, that's definitely something to ponder. Keep mulling over that thought. This deep dive into Michael E. Gerber's extraordinary work offers so much to chew on, so many layers of insight into business, yes, but maybe even more profoundly, into life itself.
It really makes you think.
We sincerely hope it sparks some profound aha moments for you today, and perhaps provides a powerful template, or at least some challenging questions for your own journey. Whether you're just contemplating a new venture, striving to transform an existing one, or maybe just seeking a more conscious, intentional way to approach your work and life.
The principles are broadly applicable.
Absolutely. We wholeheartedly encourage you to explore his books further if this resonated, starting perhaps with the classic The E-Myth Revisited, to dive even deeper into these powerful, transformative concepts. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today.
Thanks for listening.
And we look forward to our next deep dive together.